The Mustang sat in the corner of the shop like a stubborn memory. A 1967 fastback, primer gray nose pointed toward the open bay door hood propped up. Dust lay across it in a thin film. Every once in a while, the afternoon light slid through the high windows and caught the curves just right, turning it into something almost holy. Luke Carter wiped his hands on a rag and told himself he would get back to it tomorrow. The compressor hummed. A country song crackled from an old radio on the shelf. The whole place smelled like oil and rubber and hot metal. It was the smell of his days now. Safe, predictable, heavy. He leaned into the open engine compartment of a minivan, listening to the faint tick of cooling metal. There was nothing wrong with the van. He knew that. He was letting time pass. The bell on the shop door jingled. "Either that van is talking to you, or you're hiding from something," Jake Miller said. Luke straightened, tossing the rag onto the workbench. Jake stood just inside the door, tie loosened shirt sleeves rolled up a folder tucked under his arm. He smelled like dealership coffee and cheap cologne. "I could say the same about those ugly ties you keep buying," Luke said. Jake grinned and walked farther in, sidestepping an oil pan. "I sell trucks, man. The tie is part of the illusion." He glanced at the Mustang, then at Luke. "You still haven't touched it this week, have you?" "It's fine where it is." "That's not fine. That's stuck." Luke ignored that. "You need something, or are you just here to insult my work ethic?" Jake dropped the folder on the workbench. A white envelope slid out and skidded to a stop by Luke's hand. There was a restaurant logo on the front in gold ink, the kind of place with cloth napkins and waiters who pronounced salmon with too much confidence. "Reservation for 2, Jake said. "Saturday, 7. Luke did not touch the envelope. "No. At least pretend to consider it. For my feelings." "No." Jake sighed and planted his palms on the bench. "You fix everyone's broken cars. When are you going to look at your own life and admit it's running on a spare tire? I have the shop, I have Emma, and you have a ghost sitting in your passenger seat every time you drive home." Luke's jaw tightened. He turned back to the minivan, started checking connections that did not need checking. Jake watched him for a beat, then softened his voice. "Lily has this friend, new teacher at the elementary school, name's Nora Hayes. First grade, sweet, funny. Lily keeps saying you two should meet." "I do not need a teacher," Luke said. "I need brake pads and a quiet Saturday." "That is the worst bumper sticker I have ever heard." Luke grabbed the envelope, intending to hand it back, but his fingers held on a second too long. It had been a long time since anyone arranged anything for him that did not involve a tow truck. "What did you tell her?" he asked. "That you are an okay guy with a questionable beard who loves his kid," Jake said. "Also that you own your own shop and you make a mean grilled cheese. That is a lot of pressure for one sandwich. Come on, one drink. You can leave after the first awkward silence. I will watch Emma. She loves our place. Lily lets her put too much whipped cream on everything." Luke stared at the envelope, at the edges of the logo, at the date printed under the fancy font. His chest felt too tight. "Hannah would want you to at least try," Jake added quietly. That hit like a wrench to the ribs. The hospital room flashed through his mind without permission. The pale walls, the steady beep. Hannah's fingers cool but still trying to squeeze his. "Promise me you will keep living." He had promised. He had not meant it. "I don't even remember how to talk to someone who isn't trying to sell me tires," he muttered. "Good. You will be mysterious." Jake nudged the envelope closer. "Say yes. If you hate it, you can blame me for the rest of your life." Luke swallowed. The shop felt smaller. The Mustang in the corner watched him like it was waiting. "One drink," he said. Jake's smile lit up his whole face. "Attaboy." The restaurant was one of those places people posted pictures of. Exposed brick walls. Edison bulbs hanging low over the tables, casting everything in warm amber. A jazz trio played in a corner, soft and smooth, the bass line like a second heartbeat. Luke sat at a small table by the window, his back to the wall. His button-down shirt felt too stiff at the collar. He kept pulling at it with 2 fingers like it might loosen the knot in his throat. A waitress had already filled his water glass twice. The condensation ran down the side and made a wet ring on the white tablecloth. He checked his phone. No new messages, no excuse. At home, Emma would be at Jake and Lily's, probably building a fort out of couch cushions, while Lily pretended to scold them and then joined in. He pictured her brown hair in a messy ponytail, the way it always slid out of the elastic by bedtime. "Waiting on someone?" the waiter asked as he passed by. "Yeah," Luke said. "She is probably stuck in traffic." The waiter nodded and moved away. Luke looked around. Couples leaned toward each other laughing. A woman at the bar swirled her wine and stared at her own reflection in the mirror behind the bottles. The jazz pianist smiled at something only he could hear. This whole place felt like a life he had stepped out of a long time ago. He glanced down at his hands. Tiny scars marked his knuckles. Grease still lived in the lines of his skin, even after scrubbing. He rotated the glass between his palms, listening to the faint scrape on the tablecloth. The front door opened. He did not look up at first, just caught the motion, the wash of cooler air, the shift in sound, as conversations lifted for a second and settled again. Hostess greeting someone, low voices, footsteps on hardwood. "Hi, welcome. Do you have a reservation?" "Yes, under Hayes." The name brushed the back of his mind. Jake had said that name. Nora Hayes. Luke lifted his gaze. A woman stood near the entrance, shrugging out of a thin coat. Her hair was dark brown, pulled back in a loose twist at the nape of her neck. She wore a simple green dress and held a small purse close to her side. There was a crease between her brows, like she was not sure she belonged here. The hostess said something and pointed toward Luke's table. The woman turned her head. For a second, the world squeezed to a pinpoint. Her face caught the light from the nearest bulb, the line of her nose, the curve of her mouth, the small dimple on her left cheek that appeared when she gave a hesitant smile. Hannah. The water glass slipped from his fingers and thumped onto the table. Ice cubes jumped. Water spilled across the cloth and into his lap, cold and shocking. He did not feel it, not really. Every sound in the room muffled like someone had stuffed cotton in his ears. The jazz faded. The clink of silverware blurred. All he could hear was the rush of his own pulse and the soft scrape of her shoes as she walked toward him. It was Hannah's face. It was not Hannah he knew, that he had watched Hannah's chest rise and fall for the last time, had seen them pull the sheet up. But his eyes refused to understand. "Luke," the woman said. Her voice was softer, different, but close enough. She stood at the edge of the table looking at the water spreading between them, then at his hands, then at his face. "Are you okay?" she asked. He gripped the edge of the table. His knuckles went white. The room tilted. "I am sorry," he heard himself say. The words scraped out of his throat. I have to go." He stood so fast the chair legs scraped against the floor. Conversations around them faltered. Someone laughed too loudly to cover the sound. "Wait," she said. "Did I say something wrong?" He did not answer. He stepped around the table, almost tripping over his chair, and headed for the door. Not running, not quite. His heart sprinted anyway. Outside, the evening air hit him cool against his damp shirt. The sky over downtown Nashville was bruised purple streetlights flickering on one by one. He walked until the restaurant was 3 blocks behind him, and the noise had thinned to the occasional car and the buzz of a neon sign. His truck sat under a street lamp paint-dull windshield, freckled with old bug marks. He climbed in, shut the door, and finally let himself fall apart. His forehead dropped to the steering wheel. His breath came fast and shallow. His hands shook on the leather. The phone on the passenger seat lit up and started to vibrate. He stared at it until the call almost went to voicemail, then fumbled to pick it up. "Yeah," he managed. "What the hell did you do?" Jake's voice spilled through the speaker. "Lily just got a text. Nora said you saw her and bolted like the building was on fire." Luke pressed the back of his head to the seat and shut his eyes. The image of that face burned behind his eyelids. "She looks like Hannah," he said. "Not kind of, not sorta, exactly." Silence stretched for a few seconds. He could hear Jake breathing. "You mean she reminds you of Hannah?" Jake said slowly. "I mean, if Hannah walked into that restaurant tonight, that is what it would look like. Same hair, same eyes, same dimple on the left. I thought I was losing my mind." Jake swore under his breath. "Lily never said that. She just said Nora was new in town, teaches first grade quiet nice. She mentioned something about Nora looking for family, but she did not say anything about her being a copy of your wife." Luke lifted his head. The word family rang in his ears. "Looking for family how?" he asked. Jake hesitated. "Lily said Nora grew up knowing she had a twin who went missing when they were 3. It happened at the Minnesota State Fair. Crowded day. One second they were there, next second one was gone. Her folks spent their whole lives looking. Minnesota, fair, 3 years old. Hannah sitting on their old couch, telling him once, almost as a joke, that she had been found at a fair with a balloon string wrapped around her wrist and no one to claim her." Luke stared through the windshield at the empty street. "Luke," Jake said softly, "what if Nora is Hannah's twin?" The truck felt smaller with the phone still in his hand. Headlights slid past on the street and disappeared in the rearview mirror. Somewhere downtown, the jazz band kept playing. In here, it was just the tick of the cooling engine and the echo of Jake's last words. What if Nora is Hannah's twin? Luke ended the call and let the phone drop to the seat. His fingers would not unclench right away. He stared at the faint white scars across his knuckles until his vision blurred. Minnesota, a fair, 3 years old. Hannah on their old sofa surfaced in his mind. Bare feet tucked under her hair in a messy knot after a shift laughing when he asked about the little cow keychain on her bag. They had been watching some game show where a contestant won a family trip to the state fair. She had said almost casually that the bright lights and crowds made her nervous. When he asked why, she had shrugged eyes on the television. "Story goes, some cop found me alone at a fair when I was 3, she had said. No parents, no name, nothing. They put my picture on the news for a while. Nobody showed up. I do not remember any of it. My earliest memories are of my foster home. The fair is just this weird story that belongs to me, but also does not." He had kissed her temple and made some joke about carnies, and she had rolled her eyes and stolen his fries. They had not talked about it again. Now the story pressed against his ribs like it was trying to get out. Luke dragged in a breath, wiped his face with both hands, and started the truck. The engine turned over on the first try. He eased into traffic, the restaurant shrinking in his side mirror. He drove on autopilot toward Jake and Lily's neighborhood. Porch lights glowed in front yards, halos in the damp air. A plastic skeleton from Halloween still leaned against one mailbox, half collapsed. Jake met him at the front door before he could knock. The porch light threw shadows under his eyes. "You look like you just saw a ghost," Jake said quietly. Luke almost laughed. It came out as a puff of air. "Not funny." Jake stepped aside. Warmth and the smell of butter and sugar rolled out of the house. Somewhere inside, Emma was giggling. A cartoon theme song played too loud. "Lily put her in the guest room," Jake said. "They baked something that used to be cookies." They walked down the hallway. Lily poked her head out of the kitchen flower on her cheek. "Hey," she said, reading his face in an instant. "We can talk later." "Thanks for watching her," Luke said. Lily smiled. "She wore our dog out. He is already hiding under the bed." In the guest room, Emma sat cross-legged on the air mattress, a plate of cookie crumbs beside her, and the family dog sprawled upside down at her feet. Her hair had escaped her ponytail and fanned over her shoulders. "Dad," she said, eyes bright, "Uncle Jake let me have 3 cookies. Aunt Lily said 2, but he cannot count." "She bribed me," Jake said. "I am weak." Luke tried to smile. "Time to get you home, kiddo." On the drive back, Emma chattered about school, about a science experiment that had exploded food coloring all over her teacher's shoes. Luke murmured at the right spots, but mostly he held the wheel too tight and kept his eyes on the dark road. After a while, Emma ran out of stories. The silence grew. "So," she said, as if she had just remembered, "how was your date?" He blinked. The word sat in the cab heavier than it should have been. "It was complicated," he said. Emma made a face he recognized from Hannah, one eyebrow lifted, mouth pulled to the side. "That is what grown-ups say when they mess up and do not want to tell the whole story," she said. He let out a low sound. "You spend too much time with Jake." "He did not teach me that. Mom did." The road blurred for a second. He blinked hard and cleared his throat. Emma picked at a loose thread on her jeans. "Did she like you?" He thought of the way Nora had looked at him, worried, confused water puddling between them, the way he had run. "I did not give her much of a chance to," he said. The porch light on his house clicked on as they pulled into the driveway. Emma yawned as they went inside, the familiar creak of the front step under their feet. The living room lamp still glowed, left on for them. "Brush your teeth," he said, hanging his keys on the hook by the door. "Yes, sir," she said, dragging her feet toward the bathroom. He stood in the living room a moment, letting his eyes move over the space. The sofa with the worn-out cushion where Hannah used to tuck her feet. The framed photo on the wall of the 3 of them at the zoo. Emma on his shoulders, Hannah leaning into his side, sunlight catching in her hair. He turned away before his chest could cave in. In the kitchen, he poured himself a glass of water and drank half of it without tasting it. The mug with the chipped rim sat in the dish rack, cleaned from the morning. He touched the crack with his thumb. Love does not run out. Hannah had said it once, not to him, but to Emma, thinking he was not listening. He had been standing in the hallway outside Emma's room, a basket of laundry balanced on his hip. Emma had been 6, then thin little shoulders hunched as she sat on the bed, tears dripping off her chin. "What happens when you are gone?" Emma had whispered. "Do I have to save all my love for you so I do not run out?" The room had felt too small. Luke had almost walked in. Hannah had reached out first, cupping the back of Emma's head. "That is not how it works," she had said. "Love is not like juice in a cup. It does not run out if you pour it for more than one person. It stretches, it makes room." He had backed away before they saw him, heart pounding. Later, when Emma asked him about it again, he had quoted Hannah almost word for word. Now the memory sat in the kitchen with him, along with the quiet and the hum of the refrigerator. "Dad?" Emma called from the hallway, muffled by toothpaste. "Can you tuck me in?" "Yeah," he said. His voice sounded rough to his own ears. "Be right there." He set the glass in the sink and went down the hallway. Emma's room still looked like Hannah had left it. The same pale blue walls, the same glow-in-the-dark stars scattered across the ceiling. A soccer poster, a bookshelf filled with wobbling stacks of paperbacks, a stuffed bear missing one eye. Emma was already under the blanket hair, fanned over the pillow toothbrush, foam wiped onto her sleeve in a streak. "You are supposed to spit that into the sink, you know," he said. "I missed," she said, unapologetic. He sat on the edge of the bed and pulled the blanket up to her chin. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "You just did." She rolled her eyes. "Another something." "Sure. Do you think Mom would want you to be alone forever?" He stared at her. For a second, the bed, the room, the house all seemed to tilt. "What makes you ask that?" he said. Emma shrugged one shoulder. "You went on a date. Everybody made a big deal about it. You came back looking weird. You say you are fine, but you get that line between your eyebrows." She poked between his eyes. "Right here." He caught her hand gently. "I do not think your mom wanted me to be alone," he said slowly. "She wanted us to be okay." Emma studied his face, her own more serious than a 9-year-old's should be. "She told me," Emma said quietly, "in the hospital." The word hospital landed between them like a stone. He almost told her they did not have to talk about that. Emma kept going. "She said," Emma continued, "that my heart was big enough for lots of people, that if I loved someone new one day, it would not mean I loved her any less. She said the same thing about you." Luke felt something in his throat tighten. "She did, huh?" he said. "Yeah." Emma blinked slowly, her lashes damp. "So, if you like someone, you do not have to pretend you do not just because of her. That would make her sad." He swallowed. "It is not that simple. Everybody keeps saying that," Emma said. "Maybe it is." She rolled onto her side, turning her back to him, and curled her hands under her cheek. "Good night, Dad," she said. "Good night, Bug." He stayed there after her breathing evened out, just watching the rise and fall of her shoulders. He brushed a piece of hair away from her face and stood quietly. In the living room again, he turned off the lamp and let the house fall into softer shadows. The porch light outside glowed through the curtains. His phone buzzed on the coffee table. He picked it up, expecting a message from Jake, some half-joke apology about pushing him. Instead, a number he did not recognize lit the screen. His thumb hovered a second, then he opened it. "This is Nora," the message read. "We should talk." He sat down slowly. For a moment, all he could focus on was the name at the top. He could see her face again, framed by the restaurant light, confusion in her eyes, water soaking into the tablecloth. "We should talk." His fingers moved before his mind entirely caught up. "I am sorry about tonight," he typed. "You caught me off guard." He deleted the last sentence and wrote it again, then hit send before he could talk himself out of it. A reply appeared faster than he expected. "Lily told me some of it," Nora wrote, "about Hannah and about me. I think it would help if we could sit somewhere that is not a crowded restaurant." He exhaled slowly. Where he wrote, there was a pause. "Riverside Park," she replied. "The one by the playground. Tomorrow at 4. He thought of the park of the bench that looked out over the river of Emma, when she was smaller, riding the swings until she made herself dizzy. He thought of Hannah there once with a picnic blanket and a sun hat that had never really fit. 4 works, he wrote. He set the phone face down on the table, leaned back into the couch, and stared at the ceiling until the glow-in-the-dark stars in the next room were the only lights he could see in his mind. Riverside Park smelled like wet leaves and river water. The sky had pulled a thin gray sheet over the city that afternoon. Bare trees lined the path, their branches like ink strokes against the clouds. A few kids clambered over the playground. Equipment coats unzipped breath, puffing in little clouds as they shouted. Luke arrived 15 minutes early and still felt late. He parked along the curb and sat in the truck for a moment, watching a plastic grocery bag tumble across the grass. His stomach felt like it did before a bad diagnosis at the shop, when a customer looked at him with too much hope. He got out anyway. The path crunched softly under his boots. The bench he had thought of last night stood where it always had, overlooking the slow brown sweep of the river. Someone had scratched initials into the backrest. The metal felt cold even through his jacket when he sat. He could have stayed home. He could have told Nora there was nothing to say. None of those options had felt like breathing. A dog trotted past with a stick in its mouth, owner in tow. A jogger passed by, earbuds and oblivious. Somewhere a car door shut. He looked up and saw Nora coming down the path. She had her hands tucked into the pockets of a navy coat, shoulders hunched slightly against the breeze. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail, this time the end of it brushing the collar. Without the restaurant lighting and the dress, she looked younger and more ordinary, and somehow more real, his chest still clenched. She hesitated a few paces away from the bench, as if unsure if she should sit or stand. Then she lowered herself onto the far end, leaving a careful space between them. "Hi," she said. "Hi." The river moved in front of them, carrying a branch along, spinning it slowly. "Thank you for meeting me," she said. "You are the one who asked," he said, then winced at how it sounded. "Sorry, I did not mean that how it came out." Her mouth twitched, not quite a smile. "It is okay. It has been a weird couple of days." Weird was one word for it. They sat with it for a moment. The wind lifted a stray strand of her hair across her cheek. She brushed it back with her gloved fingers. He noticed her hands shook just a little. "I panicked," he said quietly, "at the restaurant. I saw you and my brain decided it was 3 years ago." Her gaze stayed on the water. "Lily told me what happened to your wife," she said. "I mean, not details, just that she passed away. I am sorry." The words always landed the same way. He nodded, eyes fixed on his boots. "When I got home," he said, "I kept telling myself I had imagined it, that you only sort of looked like her, and the lighting messed with my head." "And?" she asked. He let out a breath that fogged in the cold air. "And then Jake called. Lily told him you came to Nashville looking for family, that you are looking for a twin." There it was placed between them, like a fragile object. Nora's fingers tightened in her pockets. For a moment he thought she might deny it. "I was not expecting you to know that much so fast," she said. "Small city," he said. "Small group of people who care too much." That got the smallest laugh out of her. It fizzled quickly. She reached inside her coat and pulled out something folded. Carefully she opened it. It was a photograph, the kind that had lived in a frame before someone had slid it out. The edges were soft, corners bent. The colors had faded to a softer version of themselves. 2 little girls sat on the worn wooden steps of a porch. They were 3 maybe round knees poking out from under matching yellow dresses. Their dark hair was in pigtails tied with ribbons. One girl leaned toward the other, mid-giggle, eyes crinkled. Behind them, a man and a woman stood, each with a gentle hand resting on a tiny shoulder. The man's face was sunburned, his smile wide. The woman wore glasses that took up half her face, and looked like she had no idea the camera was about to click. Nora held the photo so he could see her thumb pressed carefully to the margin, avoiding the ink. "This is the only picture of us together," she said, "before." He looked at the girls, at their noses, at their eyes, at their mouths. One of them was Nora. One of them was Hannah, even if she had never known that was her name. "They told me I used to trade shoes with her," Nora said, "that I would take the left from one pair and the right from another so we would match. My mom said she would find us sitting in the closet with a pile of shoes, completely happy." Luke could not make his throat work for a second. He traced the faint outline of a little hand on the younger version of the man in the picture. "What are their names?" he asked. "Mary and Tom Hayes," she said. "My parents." He nodded, swallowing. "You said before," he said. "What happened after?" She drew in a breath, the air hitching on the way in. "We were at the Minnesota State Fair," she said. "At least that is what they always told me. It was hot, crowded, so loud. I do not really remember it. I only remember their version of it. They were watching a parade. I guess we were both there, holding hands 1 second, and then the next." She trailed off, her gaze fixed somewhere past the river. They turned around, and it was just me. Her voice stayed flat, like she had worn this story down on the edges from telling it so many times. "They looked for her everywhere," she said. "Security police announcements over the loudspeakers. They shut everything else out for days. Weeks. It turned into months, years. They put out flyers, did interviews, filed reports. They kept her room ready. Same bedspread, same toys, a nameplate on the door." He saw flashes as she spoke. The fairgrounds, the multicolored lights, the smell of fried dough. A tiny girl with a balloon tied to her wrist standing alone by a fence. "Nobody ever brought her back," Nora said. "They never found a body, never found a suitcase, nothing. Just an empty space where their kid used to be." Her hands were shaking more visibly now. She tucked the photo back into her coat, like it might disintegrate in the cold. "They died in a car accident 5 years ago," she said, "on their way to talk to some retired cop who thought he had a lead. He was wrong. They never stopped looking." Luke stared at the damp patch of ground by his boots. Hannah's voice whispered in his memory about being found at a fair with no name. The little girl in the photograph looked out at him, frozen in time. "They told Hannah she had been abandoned," he said quietly. The social worker, the foster parents. Nobody came for her, so it was easier to say whoever lost her did not want her back. She grew up with that story. He looked up. Nora's eyes shone with unshed tears. She thought she was alone, Luke said. She thought no one wanted her. Nora shook her head once short and sharp. They wanted her, she said, more than anything. They never let me forget that. They sang happy birthday to both of us every year and put an extra candle on the cake. They kept 2 stockings on the mantel at Christmas. They would have crossed the world if anyone had told them where to go. A child laughed near the swings behind them, the sound bright and thin in the cold air. A train horn blew in the distance. I moved here 6 months ago, Nora said, voice softer. I have been looking through old records since I was 18. Foster care files, adoption lists, news articles. An old caseworker thought a little girl matching her description had been placed with a family in Tennessee once. It did not turn out to be her, but I stayed. She let out a breath. I did not know what I was looking for anymore. I just knew I could not go back to a house that did not have them in it. Luke sat very still. Hannah was a nurse, he said almost to himself. She worked nights at the children's hospital. She hated the cafeteria coffee and loved the vending machine pretzels. A small smile pulled at his mouth. She would come home in the morning and pretend not to be exhausted, so Emma would not worry. Emma, Nora repeated. Lily mentioned your daughter. How old is she? 9, he said. She was 6 when Hannah got sick. He told her then in fits and starts. About the community center where he had taught a car maintenance class to single moms as a volunteer. How Hannah had arrived late, hair frizzed from the rain, apologizing to everyone and taking notes on the back of a grocery receipt. He told her about their first date at a diner, with cracked red vinyl seats where they had stayed until the waitress wiped down the table twice to hint. About the proposal in a parking lot with a ring he had paid off in layaway. He did not rush it. The river gave him time. When he got to the hospital part, his voice roughened. The viral infection, the way her heart had refused to keep up with the machines that blinked and beeped, and then did not. Nora listened without interrupting. Sometimes her jaw clenched, sometimes her hands pressed so tight in her pockets the knuckles showed through the fabric. When he told her about the last night, he had to stop and stare at the river for a long moment before he could speak. She made me promise to be happy again, he said finally. She said she did not want us stuck in that room forever. The wind moved over the water, lifting tiny ripples. She sounds stubborn, Nora said quietly. She was, he said, in the best and worst ways. They fell into silence again, the kind that did not feel quite as sharp as before. After a while, Nora pulled her hands free of her pockets and rubbed her palms together. I used to imagine her, she said, my sister. I would draw her next to me in class pictures. I would talk to the empty bed across from mine. I did not know her name, so I just called her you. She laughed once short. I thought by now I would be used to not knowing who she was, she said. Then I walked into a restaurant and saw her face sitting at a table, and my brain just filled in all the empty spaces at once. He looked at her. She looked back, eyes damp, lashes clumped. I am not her, she said. I know that is obvious, but I need to say it out loud. I am not a second chance at the exact same person. I am the person who has spent 30 years trying to figure out why the world felt crooked. I know you are not her, he said. He watched a leaf float past on the river. I could not breathe when I saw you, he said. I wanted to. I wanted to walk over and sit down and be normal, ask about your day like a functional adult. Instead, my body thought we were at a funeral again. Nora let out a breath that clouded in front of her. It hurt, she said. You bolting like that. For a second I thought I had done something wrong before I even opened my mouth. I am sorry, he said. You did nothing wrong. They sat with it, letting the apology settle. A gull wheeled overhead, calling out in a harsh cry. He thought of Emma then, of her small, brave face last night, of the way she had said Mom would be sad if he pretended not to care about someone. My daughter, he said slowly. She deserves to know your story. She deserves to know that her mom was not just found, she was missed. He glanced at Nora. And if you want to know anything about Hannah that I have not said, I will tell you, as much as you can stand. Nora nodded once, then again. I want to know everything, she said. Every little thing you can think of. The good, the bad, the weird. All the stuff that never made it into a medical chart. So, he talked. He told her about Hannah's laugh that startled birds off the fence. About the way she would sing along to songs without knowing the lyrics and make them up. About the time she burned grilled cheese and claimed it was extra toasted when Emma frowned. He told her about the way Hannah had always bought extra mittens in winter to keep in her car, just in case she saw a kid at a bus stop without any, about how she kept a jar of buttons she found in parking lots and waiting rooms, like orphaned pieces waiting for a home. Nora closed her eyes sometimes, like she was trying to hold the images in place. In return, she told him about Mary and Tom, about her mother's habit of humming while grading papers, about her father building her a crooked treehouse with windows that did not quite close, about the empty chair at the dinner table they had never moved. Words moved back and forth between them until the sun slipped lower and the cold started to bite through their coats. Finally, Nora shifted, rubbing her hands up and down her arms. "I should probably go," she said. "I have stacks of papers to grade and a cat who is very offended when I am late." He nodded, reluctant to let whatever they had built on this bench evaporate. "Nora," he said. She paused, standing now, her face turned toward him. "Emma knows her mom was adopted," he said. "She knows there is a before that does not have us in it. She does not know about you, not yet." He stood as well, hands in his pockets now mirroring her. "If you are willing," he said, "I would like her to meet you, not as her mom, as her aunt, as the person who spent years wondering about the same missing piece." Something moved across Nora's face, a ripple of fear and hope tangled together. "Are you sure that is a good idea?" she asked. "She thought I was her already once. Lily said she asked if I was her mom." "I know," he said, "and I know it will be confusing, but Emma is not fragile glass. She is curious. She deserves the truth, and you deserve to see the little girl your sister raised for 9 years." Nora looked past him for a long moment, watching a boy kick a soccer ball against a tree trunk. The ball thunked over and over. "How old did you say she is again?" Nora asked. 9. 9 was when I stopped believing she was coming back, Nora said almost to herself. She looked at him again. "If she wants to meet me," Nora said, "I would like that." He nodded, feeling something loosen in his chest. "I will talk to her," he said. "We can pick a time that is not right before bed." That pulled a small smile out of Nora. "Good plan," she said. They walked back toward the parking lot together, not quite side by side, not quite apart, their breaths visible in the cool air as the river rolled on behind them. Luke waited until Saturday. He told himself it was because of school and bedtime routines, and the fact that 9-year-olds did not need major life conversations on a Tuesday night. In truth, he needed a couple of days for his own thoughts to stop crashing into each other. Saturday morning came with bright light over the kitchen sink and the smell of coffee in the air. Emma sat at the table in pajama bottoms and a faded soccer shirt cereal bowl pushed aside. She was coloring something with fierce concentration, tongue stuck out between her teeth. He poured himself coffee in the chipped mug and leaned against the counter for a second, watching her. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere outside, a lawnmower started up too early. "What you drawing?" he asked. "A dragon," she said. "But nice. Not the kidnapping princess kind. The helping with math homework kind. That is a very specific dragon." She shrugged. "Math is hard." He took a sip, then set the mug down. His hand left a faint ring on the counter. "Hey, Bug," he said. "Can we talk for a second?" The crayons paused. She looked up at him, brown eyes suddenly wary. "Am I in trouble?" she asked. "Not unless serial crimes are a thing," he said. "No, this is about Mom, and someone connected to her." Emma put the crayon down carefully and folded her arms on the table. She did not say anything. Her face did a thing he had seen at the hospital, going very still, as if she was trying to brace without looking like she was. "You know Mom was adopted," he said. She nodded. "Because her other parents did not want her." He winced. "That is what she was told when she was little. It was not true." Emma blinked. "What do you mean?" He pulled out the chair across from her and sat. The wood creaked a little under his weight. "Do you remember the story about how she was found at a fair?" he asked. "With the balloon string?" Emma said. "Yeah." He rubbed his hands together, searching for words that fit a 9-year-old, and still told the truth. "Someone lost her that day," he said. "They were watching a parade. They turned around and she was gone. They were not bad. They did not leave her on purpose. They looked for her for a long time." Emma frowned slowly. "Her real parents, her birth parents," he said. "They loved her. They just never found where she went." She picked at a chip in the varnish on the table. "Why are you telling me this now?" she asked. "Because," he said, "they had another little girl, a twin. She grew up knowing there was someone missing. She has been trying to find out what happened ever since." Emma stared. He could almost see the pieces aligning behind her eyes. "Like twin sisters in movies," she said quietly. "Not like the movies," he said. "Real and messy, but yes, Mom had a twin sister." Emma swallowed. Her voice dropped even lower. "Is she alive?" she asked. "Yes," he said. His own heart climbed into his throat. Her name is Nora. She lives here, in this city. Emma was very still. The lady at the restaurant, she said, the one you ran away from. He let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. Lily told you about that. She told me you had a panic attack, Emma said. She did not say why, but I heard them whispering. He could not even be annoyed. They both underestimated how much a kid heard in a small kitchen. That was Nora, he said. I was not ready. That was on me. Emma's tongue pressed against her teeth. Does she look like Mom? He thought of the restaurant the way his vision had tunneled. He thought of the park where the similarities had softened into something that hurt less and somehow more. She looks a lot like her, he said. Enough that it will probably be weird. For both of you. Emma looked down at her paper. The dragon stared up from the page with big round eyes. Do I have to meet her? She asked. No, he said immediately. You do not have to do anything you do not want to. I wanted you to know she exists. She wants to meet you, but only if you feel okay about it. Emma sat with that lower lip between her teeth. Will it make Mom mad? She asked. If I like her? The question cut him in a way nothing else had. No, he said with more force than he meant. He steadied his voice. I think Mom would be glad you are not the only one who misses her. Emma blinked fast, lashes wet. Will you be there? She asked. Every second, he said. She nodded once firm. Okay then, I wanted to meet her. Nora stood on the front step precisely at 3 that afternoon. Luke saw her through the front window, before she raised her hand to knock. She wore a soft gray sweater and jeans, her coat draped over one arm. Her hair was down this time, falling past her shoulders, a little windblown. He opened the door before her knuckles touched the wood. Hi, she said. Hi, come in. She stepped past him. The entryway suddenly felt too small. The faint scent of her shampoo, something clean and almost citrus, threaded into the usual mix of laundry detergent and whatever Emma had last spilled on the rug. Nora's eyes moved over the space. The hooks with jackets. The little bench where Emma left her sneakers. The drawing taped crookedly to the wall that said Best Dad in bubble letters. From down the hall, Emma's voice floated. Is she here? Nora's shoulders tensed. She held her coat a little tighter. That is her, Luke said quietly. He walked to the doorway of the living room and stopped. Emma stood halfway down the hall, sock feet on hardwood fingers, twisted in the hem of her t-shirt. She looked smaller than usual, as if the air had pressed in around her. Nora took one step forward, then another. The moment Emma saw her face, something in the room changed. The light seemed to shift. Emma's eyes went very wide. Every bit of color drained from her cheeks. Mom, she said. The word barely left her throat. It hung there fragile as spun sugar. Nora flinched, like she had been hit. Tears flooded her eyes so fast, Luke did not know how she still saw. No, Nora said quickly, voice-soft hands lifted a little. I am not your mom. I promise. Hi, I am Nora. Emma stared, breath coming faster. She looked at Luke. You said she looks like her, Emma whispered. You did not say she looks exactly like her. I know, Luke said. His own chest ached. I am sorry, Bug. Nora swallowed, forcing herself to stay where she was. She did not step closer without permission. I am your aunt, she said. Your mom's sister. She and I had the same face once. I think you got the better version. That coaxed the tiniest sound out of Emma. Not quite a laugh, more like a hiccup. You have her nose, Emma said. So I have been told, Nora said. They stayed in that strange triangle for a moment. Then Emma took a small step forward, then another. She stopped an arm's length away from Nora and tipped her head back, studying her like she was a painting in a museum. Nora stayed very still. Tears kept gathering, spilling over, sliding silently down her cheeks. You have her dimple, Emma said, almost accusing. Nora let out a shaky breath. I do not know how to turn it off. Emma lifted a hand, hesitated. Can I touch your face? Nora nodded. Yeah. Emma's fingertips rested lightly against Nora's cheek, just at the edge of the dimple. Her touch was quick, like she was afraid of breaking something. She dropped her hand, then stepped back a half pace. You sound different, Emma said. Good different or cartoon villain different? Nora asked. Emma's mouth twitched. Just different. Luke stood in the doorway, every muscle in his body locked, terrified of saying the wrong thing and breaking whatever fragile bridge had appeared between them. Do you want to sit? He asked. Emma nodded and backed up to the couch. She climbed into her usual corner, curling her legs under her. Nora perched on the far cushioned coat, still gripped in her lap like a flotation device. Luke took the armchair opposite them, feeling like a spectator and a referee, and something else he could not name. For a moment no one talked. The wall clock ticked too loudly. You can ask me anything, Nora said, finally looking at Emma. If you want. You do not have to. We can also talk about pizza toppings or cartoons. Do you know what Mom was like when she was little? Emma blurted. Nora blinked. A little. My parents told me some stories. I only remember her in flashes. We were 3 when we got separated. Like what? Emma said. Nora's shoulders relaxed a fraction. She shifted on the cushion, loosening her grip on the coat. She used to steal my left shoes, Nora said. Just the left ones. My mom said she would take one from my pair and one from hers, and then we would match. She did not like the idea that we looked different at all. Emma's eyes softened. That sounds like her. She loved climbing things she was not supposed to, Nora went on. Kitchen counters, bookcases, the dog. She hated peas. She would hide them in her pockets or under the table. Emma's smile edged wider. Mom hates peas, she said. She corrected herself, voice dropping. Hated. Nora nodded. A tear slipped down her face. She wiped it away with the back of her hand. Can I ask you something? She said. You do not have to answer. Emma nodded. What was she like as a mom? Nora asked. Emma sat up straighter, as if someone had lit a match in her. Words spilled out faster than Luke had ever heard her talk. She danced in the kitchen, Emma said. A lot. Even when there was no music. She made pancakes that were always kind of burnt on one side, but she said it was extra flavor. She put little notes in my lunchbox with dumb jokes. Nora laughed softly, hand over her mouth. She cried at happy parts of movies, Emma said. Not the sad parts, the happy ones where people hug. She smelled like the soap from the hospital and the laundry stuff at the same time. As she talked, her hands moved drawing shapes in the air, tracing someone only she could see. On Sundays, she would braid my hair before church, Emma said. Tight right here. She tapped the back of her head. I cannot do it myself. Dad is terrible at it. I am great at ponytails, Luke said. That is my limit. Emma glanced at Nora again. Do you know how to braid? Nora blinked. The question seemed to knock the air from her for a second. Yeah, she said. I do. I used to do my mom's hair when her hands got tired grading papers. Emma thought for a heartbeat, then slid off the couch. Can you show me? She asked. Please. Nora's eyes went glassy again. If it is okay with your dad, she said, looking at him. Luke swallowed past the lump in his throat. Go ahead, he said. His voice was rougher than he wanted. If you both want to. Emma dragged a dining chair into the middle of the living room rug and sat spine straight, hair falling down her back like a curtain. Nora moved behind her fingers, hovering over the strands for a second before she touched them. Emma's hair was warm from the house, silky under Nora's hands. The smell of kid shampoo rose up something like apple candy. You can tell me if I pull too hard, Nora said. You can tell me if I fidget too much, Emma replied. Luke watched from the armchair, fingers pressed together. The image hit him in the center of his chest. The same posture, the same tilt of the head, different hands. Nora sectioned the hair with practiced fingers. She started to weave it over and under, slow and careful. Her hands trembled only at first. This is a French braid, she said. My mom used to call it the teacher braid. She thought it made her look serious. Does it? Emma asked. It makes you look like you know all the answers, Nora said. I do not, Emma said. Math, remember. We can work on that, Nora said. Their voices dropped into an easy rhythm, trading small details. Favorite colors, least favorite vegetables, the best playground in town, the dog at Jake and Lily's house that Emma swore could understand English. Luke let the cadence wash over him. For the first time in a long time, the house sounded almost full. When Nora tied off the end with a thin elastic, she patted Emma's shoulder. Done, she said. You want to see? Emma jumped up and ran to the hallway mirror. She turned her head left then right, examining the braid fingers hovering but not touching. It looks like when Mom did it, she said quietly. Nora stood in the doorway, hands at her sides, unsure what to do with them. Is that okay? She asked. Or too much? Emma looked at her reflection a moment longer, then turned around. It is okay, she said. I like it. Something unknotted in Luke's chest at those words. Who is hungry? He said, standing. I made lasagna, the non-burnt kind. Debatable, Emma said. They ate at the small kitchen table. Nora sat where Hannah used to sit across from Emma. That should have hurt more than it did. Or maybe it did, and he was just too tired to name the ache. Dinner was awkward at first. Forks scraped, glasses clinked. Silence fell and rose like another presence at the table. Eventually, Emma started telling a story about a boy in her class who tried to smuggle a frog into his backpack. Nora listened with total focus, reacting at all the right moments. She asked Emma about her favorite books, and when Emma lit up about a series Luke had never heard of, Nora promised to bring a copy of one from her classroom that Monday. Luke watched the way Emma leaned toward Nora without noticing she was doing it. He watched the way Nora softened around the edges, the lines on her forehead easing when Emma laughed. After dinner, they moved back to the living room. Emma insisted on showing Nora her shelf of trophies, all 5 of them, and her lopsided clay dinosaur from art class. "This one is named Pancake," Emma said, holding up the dinosaur. "Obviously," Nora said. "That is a very strong dinosaur name." When it was time for Nora to go, the sky outside had shifted to a deeper blue. The porch light flicked on automatically. At the door, Nora slipped on her coat, slowly fingers fumbling on the buttons. "Thank you for having me," she said. "Thank you for coming," Luke said. He meant it in more ways than one. Nora looked down at Emma. "I am really glad I met you," she said. "If you ever want more stories about Mom when she was little, I have a whole file cabinet in my brain." Emma nodded. "If you ever want to know more about Mom when she was old, like 30, she said, I know stuff too." Nora laughed, a sound that had a catch in it. "I might take you up on that." Emma hesitated, then stepped forward and wrapped her arms around Nora's waist. It was quick, almost clumsy, but real. Nora froze for a second, then folded her arms around Emma's shoulders and held on. "Bye, Aunt Nora," Emma said into her sweater. Nora's eyes closed. "Bye, Emma." Luke watched from the doorway as Nora walked down the front path to her car braidwork and kid laughter still hanging in the air behind her. Nora started coming over on Wednesdays. It happened simply. One week she dropped off a borrowed book Emma had forgotten at school, stayed for 10 minutes, then for dinner. The week after that, Emma asked on Tuesday if Nora was coming the next night. By the 3rd week, Luke found himself putting an extra plate on the table without thinking about it. Wednesday became Nora night. She arrived with small things: a stack of stickers for Emma's notebook, a container of leftover muffins from the teacher lounge, once a folder of old photos her parents had taken of her as a kid. She set that one on the coffee table and looked at Luke for permission, like she was bringing something live into the room. Emma flipped through the photos with careful fingers. Nora at 5 missing her front teeth. Nora in a Halloween costume with crooked cat whiskers on her cheeks. In some of them, Luke could imagine a second child just outside the frame moving in the same space. "Mom probably photobombed all of these," Emma said, half amused, half sad. "She did," Nora said quietly. "You can feel it." One cold Saturday morning, Emma had a softball game. The field behind the middle school looked like a patchwork of dirt and frozen grass. Breath fogged over the bleachers. Parents huddled in jackets, hands wrapped around paper cups of bad coffee. Luke stood by the fence, gloved hands tucked under his arms. He spotted Nora weaving through the crowd, a knit hat pulled down over her ears, scarf tucked into her coat. The tip of her nose had already turned pink from the wind. She carried a thermos and satchel. "You came," he said, a little surprised at the relief that moved through him. "I said I would," she replied. "Besides, I am grading spelling tests. Might as well do it out here." She held up a stack of papers, then leaned on the fence next to him, eyes on the diamond. Emma stood in left field, knees bouncing, glove tapping against her thigh. She glanced toward the fence and saw Nora raising her arm in a quick wave. Her shoulders seemed to straighten. "Which one is she again?" Nora asked in a mock whisper. "The short one who runs like her shoes are on fire," Luke said. Emma got on base in the 3rd inning and stole second on a wild pitch. Nora whooped a clear, bright sound that made 2 other parents turn and smile. Luke found himself watching Nora nearly as much as he watched the game. The way her face lit up when Emma made a play, the way she muttered at the umpire under her breath when he called a bad strike, the way she jotted down a note on a spelling test between innings, pen, scratching, always moving. After the game, Emma ran to the fence, cheeks flushed, hair escaping its ponytail. She sniffed dramatically at the thermos Nora held out. "What is that?" Emma asked. "Hot chocolate," Nora said. "Real kind, not water and powder." Emma's eyes widened. "Can I marry you?" she said, taking the thermos. "Ask me again when you are 30, Nora replied. Luke laughed, the sound carried away on the wind. The Mustang sat in the corner of the shop the same as always. Hood open guts exposed a project that had outlived a dozen paying jobs. One slow afternoon, Nora stopped by the garage after school. She had texted asking if she could drop off a book for Emma. When Luke said he was at the shop, she replied that she would swing by there. She walked in with the sun at her back, carrying a worn paperback and a paper bag that smelled like fries. The bell above the door chimed. "It is loud," she announced, "and it smells like an auto parts aisle and a diner. I kind of love it." He wiped his hands and took the bag from her. "You bribed your way in," he said. "Smart." "I figured grease and salt were a fair trade," she said. Her eyes went to the Mustang. Is that yours? Yeah, he said. He glanced at the car, then back at her. It belonged to my dad. I am supposed to be restoring it. Supposed to be, she repeated. I get busy, he said, paying customers first. She wandered closer to the car, stopping at the fender. Dust had settled on the metal, a thin gray coat over the promise of shine. She ran a fingertip through it, leaving a streak. It looks like it is waiting, she said. He joined her, leaning a hand on the frame. It has been waiting a long time, he said. Were you close with your dad? She asked. He shrugged one shoulder. He taught me how to change oil when I was 8, and how to lie to my mom about broken windows. That was our love language. She smiled. So this is like the family heirloom. Something like that, he said. She walked around to the open hood and peered in. I have no idea what any of that does, she said. It looks like robot organs. That is the alternator, he said, pointing. That is the air filter. That is the part that keeps you from cussing on the side of the highway. She straightened and pushed her sleeves up. Teach me, she said. He blinked. You want to learn this? I teach 6-year-olds to read, she said. You can teach me to not be helpless at the mercy of oil change places. He found a clean rag and handed it to her, then picked up a wrench. First lesson, he said. You do not have to be afraid of getting dirty. She raised her brows and wiped her hand along the side of the car, leaving a bigger streak grinning. Already there? They spent an hour that way. He showed her how to check tire pressure where the jack points were, how to find the little notch on the dipstick. Her hands got smudged with grease, a black line across her wrist where she had pushed her hair back. People pay you for this, you know, he said. Consider it professional development, she replied. At one point, their fingers brushed over a bolt they both reached for. A small shock went up his arm. She drew her hand back quickly, then pretended she had just remembered something she needed to do on the other side of the car. He watched her shoulders while she asked about Emma's favorite books and told him about a kid in her class who named every plant in the classroom. Their lives edged closer in small details. When she left, she forgot her coffee mug on the workbench. A plain white one with a chip on the rim, the glaze cracked like a spider web. It sat there next to his own chipped mug, a quiet echo. Time gathered itself in small routine pieces. Nora texted on Mondays to ask how Emma's spelling test went. Emma sent blurry photos of her art projects in return. On Fridays, Luke would sometimes find a note in Emma's lunchbox tucked next to her sandwich, written in Nora's looping handwriting. Knock, knock. Who is there? Lettuce. Lettuce who? Let us be friends. Emma rolled her eyes at the jokes and saved the notes in a shoebox under her bed. On Sundays, if Nora was free, she would come by before church to braid Emma's hair. Luke would make pancakes always a little better than Hannah's, but never quite on purpose. That morning routine made the house smell like syrup and coffee and hairspray. One Sunday, as Nora finished a braid, she glanced at the photo on Emma's nightstand. It was a picture of Hannah and Emma at a park, wild hair both mid-laugh. Someone else had taken it, catching them mid-movement. I like that one, Nora said softly. Me too, Emma said. We had ice cream after and mine melted on her shoe. Nora smiled. I can see that. Luke leaned against the doorframe, watching the two of them. Emma's eyes in the mirror met his for a second, and something like contentment sat there, mixed with a sadness that no longer swallowed everything else. That afternoon, Emma asked, "Can Aunt Nora stay for dinner?" Nora started to say she did not want to intrude. Luke answered first. Of course, he said. They roasted chicken and vegetables. Nora chopped carrots with practiced hands. Emma put too much salt on the potatoes, and Nora joked that she was seasoning like a grandma. After they ate, Emma disappeared down the hall. Probably grabbing that shoebox with the notes, Luke said. She wants to show you everything at once. Nora laughed, then let it fade. Can I ask you something? She said. You do not have to answer. I feel like I say that a lot. Ask, he said. She wiped her hands on a dish towel, fingers worrying the edge. What was she like when she was mad? Nora asked. Hannah, I mean. I have all these stories about her as this stubborn little kid, but nothing about her as a grown-up who had bills and traffic and aches in her back. He leaned back against the counter and thought. She went quiet first, he said. Her nose would get this little line right here. He traced a line across his own. Then she would do something practical. Dishes, laundry, reorganize a closet. Weaponize productivity, Nora said. Pretty much, he said. If I had really messed up eventually, she would sit on the edge of the bed and pat the mattress and say my full name. Nora smiled, eyes wet. Luke Andrew Carter, get in here. Exactly, he said. The kitchen felt smaller, then not in a bad way, more like it was holding more people than just the two of them. The key happened on a Thursday. Rain came down in cold sheets. The sky lay low over the houses, pressing everything into a blur of gray. Luke's shift at the shop had run late because someone insisted on picking up their car at closing time and then could not find their wallet. By the time he pulled into his driveway, the porch light was on, and there was a small figure sitting on the top step, huddled in a jacket that was too thin for the weather. Nora. Her hair was damp at the ends, darkened by the rain that had blown under the porch roof. She had her arms wrapped around herself, hands tucked into her elbows. A takeout bag sat beside her, beads of water forming on the plastic. He killed the engine and got out fast. "You could have waited in the truck," he said, "or at least in your car." "I did not want to break into your house," she said, teeth chattering a little. "Emma is inside. I checked. She is fine. She is working on a science project with glue and glitter. I only fear for your table." "You have been sitting out here this whole time?" he asked. "Only 20 minutes," she said. "Traffic was nice to me and mean to you." He unlocked the door and held it open. "Get in," he said. "You are going to freeze." She stepped past him. The warm air met her cold cheeks in a rush. She shivered and laughed at the same time. "Instead of making you sit on the porch," he said, closing the door behind them, "I could just give you a key." She turned blinking water from her lashes. "That is a big thing," she said. He reached to the hook by the door, where a spare key hung still on the cheap ring it had come with from the hardware store. He took it down and weighed it in his palm for a second. "It is a practical thing," he said. "You come over a lot. Sometimes I work late. Emma likes having you here. You should not have to wait outside in the rain." He held the key out between them, metal catching the porch light that reached through the glass. Nora looked at it, not taking it right away. Her throat moved as she swallowed. "For Emma," she said. "For Emma," he agreed. Her fingers brushed his as she took it. The contact was small, a spark in a wet room. She closed her hand around the key grip firm, as if it might slip away. "Thank you," she said. Her voice was a little hoarse. "I will try not to abuse my power." He smiled. "If you rearrange my entire kitchen without permission, we might have words." "I would start alphabetically," she said. "It would be a very reasonable crime." Behind them, Emma yelled from down the hall. "Dad," she called, "you are late. Also, we glued the paper to the table by accident." Nora lifted the key slightly, as if testing its weight. "I should probably go help with that," she said. He watched her walk toward the sound of Emma's voice, the key now in her pocket, the house a little warmer than it had been before. The days slipped into one another, strung together by small routines, and the sound of Emma laughing at jokes that were not very funny. On the surface, nothing dramatic changed. Nora still came on Wednesdays with stickers and stories. She still braided Emma's hair on Sundays when she could. She still texted Luke about random things like a kid at school who tried to smuggle a hamster in his backpack, or a new coffee shop that served donuts the size of hubcaps. The difference lived underneath. Nora felt it most when she let herself linger too long. She would catch herself watching Luke at the sink sleeves, pushed up hands in soapy water, humming off key to a song on the radio. The kitchen light would turn his hair a few shades lighter, soften his shoulders. Something inside her would reach. Then a sharp voice in her head would snap that reach in half. "This is not your life." She sat with Lily one evening at a small table in a noisy bar, teacher friends pushed together for half-price appetizers. The place smelled like fried food and perfume. A song from 10 years ago thumped low through the speakers. "You have that face?" Lily said over the lip of her beer. "What face?" Nora asked, dragging a tortilla chip through salsa. "The one where you are thinking about something and pretending you are not," Lily said. "Normally that face is reserved for staff meetings. Now it is here. That worries me." Nora crunched the chip and chewed slowly, buying time. "I met his daughter," she said. Lily's expression softened instantly. "Yeah," she said. "She likes you. She told me you are good at hair and bad at pretending you do not care about people." Nora laughed, felt it catch in her chest. "That kid is too observant." "She has been through a lot," Lily said. "She reads people for survival." Nora stared at the condensation sliding down her glass. "It feels right when I am there," she said quietly. "Talking to Emma, cooking, sitting on that awful couch. It feels like I am exactly where I am supposed to be." She swallowed. "And it feels wrong," she added. "At the same time, like I am stealing someone else's lines." Lily rested her chin on her hand. "You are not stealing anything," she said. "You are building something new." "It is his house," Nora said. "His kid. His memories. I keep thinking if Hannah could see us, she would be standing in the doorway wondering who invited me." Lily did not answer right away. She stirred her drink with a straw, watching the ice move. Maybe she would be relieved, Lily said at last, that they are not alone, that someone who shares her face is there to remind them of her and to be something separate from her at the same time. Nora twisted her napkin into a rope. I am so far gone, Lily, she said. I fall asleep and my brain runs through what Emma said that day and what Luke forgot on the counter. I am half in love with a man who still looks like his heart breaks every time he says his wife's name. She laughed, once bitter at herself. What kind of person does that? She asked. What kind of person falls in love with her dead twin's husband? Lily leaned forward. The kind of person who is human, she said. The kind of person who deserves good things after losing most of her family to a highway and a crowd. Nora shook her head. If I stay, she said, I am afraid I will always be standing in Hannah's shadow. If I leave, I lose the only connection I have ever had to her. Lily reached across the table and stilled Nora's hands. Maybe you should talk to him, Lily said. Really talk. Not about homework and meatloaf, about this. Nora looked away. And if he says he only sees her when he looks at me, she asked. What then? Then you will know, Lily said, and you will stop ripping yourself in half in the dark. Luke hid from his own thoughts in the shop. Work picked up as the holidays crept closer. People wanted their cars safe for trips to see relatives. They wanted tire rotations and brake checks and reassurance. He obliged. He bled air from lines, changed filters, tightened belts. He let the rhythm of tools and the smell of oil drown out the quieter noises in his head. During lunch one day, he sat on the stool by the workbench, a sandwich untouched in its wrapper. The Mustang loomed over his shoulder. He had pulled the tarp halfway off a week ago, but had not gone farther. His phone buzzed on the bench. A picture from Emma. Nora had helped her make a cell model for science out of candy. The caption read, "We ate the mitochondria. Surrey." Two gummy worms smiled from the photo jammed into a styrofoam ball. He smiled despite himself. He typed, "Looks great. Remember to brush your teeth after eating science." He sent it and stared at the little delivered tag. Jake walked in from the front office, wiping his hands on a rag, even though there was nothing on them. "You are smiling at your phone," Jake said. "That is new. Should I be jealous?" "It is Emma," Luke said. "Uh-huh," Jake said. "And who helped with whatever sugary monstrosity that is?" Luke locked the screen and set the phone down. "She is good with Emma," he said. "She is good with you too," Jake said, "even when you are a mule." "I am fine," Luke said. "You are quiet," Jake said. "That is different." Luke took a bite of his sandwich just to avoid answering. The bread tasted like nothing. "Do you ever feel like you are cheating on someone who is not here anymore?" he asked suddenly. Jake blinked. "That is a heavy question for tuna salad." Luke set the sandwich down. "I keep seeing Hannah," he said, "in the way Nora stands at the sink, in the way she holds a fork. I know she is not the same person. When I really look, I can see all the differences, but sometimes it feels like my brain grabs the easy image and slaps it over everything." Jake leaned one hip against the bench. "Do you like her?" he asked. "That is the problem," Luke said. "I think I do. I like the way she is with Emma. I like the way she talks about her parents. I like that she comes to games and complains about the umpire as much as I do. And every time I start to feel that, I ask myself if it is real or if I am just trying to drag Hannah back from where she is." He ran a hand through his hair, leaving a streak of grease on his forehead. "I do not want to use her face as an excuse," he said. "I do not want to love a ghost that is wearing different clothes." Jake was quiet longer than usual. "You know there is only one way to figure that out," he said, "and it involves you opening your mouth and saying feelings which I know is your least favorite activity." Luke scowled at the floor. "If I say the wrong thing," he said, "I lose her. Emma loses her. That is a lot of weight." "That weight already exists," Jake said. "You pretending not to notice does not make it lighter." It was a Sunday night when it all came apart. Emma had gone to a sleepover at a friend's house, leaving the house quieter than usual. Her overnight bag had been packed 3 times, then unpacked, so she could add a different stuffed animal. The last thing she said before she left was, "Tell Aunt Nora I will send her a picture of the fort." Nora texted after dinner. "Are you home?" she wrote. "Yeah," he replied. "Why?" "Can I stop by?" she wrote. "I want to talk. No emergencies." His stomach did an odd flip that felt like anticipation and dread had collided. "Sure," he wrote. "Door is open." He looked around the living room. Toys pushed against the wall, a blanket on the back of the couch, Emma's sneakers half under the coffee table. The house felt like it had exhaled for the night. His phone rang before Nora arrived. Jake's name flashed on the screen. He answered and put it on speaker as he picked up stray socks. "How is bachelor night going?" Jake asked. "Emma is at a sleepover," Luke said. So it is me in the laundry, very glamorous. You could come over and witness Lily annihilating me at cards, Jake said. It will be educational. You will learn how not to bluff. Nora is coming, Luke said. There was a beat of silence. Oh, Jake said, feelings talk. I think so, Luke said. He sat on the arm of the couch phone next to him, fingers tapping one knee. I keep going in circles, he said. Part of me wants to just stay in this routine. Let her braid Emma's hair, let her sit at my table, pretend that is enough. The other part keeps poking me in the middle of the night, asking what exactly she is to me. And what is she? Jake asked. She is the woman who shows up, Luke said slowly. She is the one Emma texts when she gets a good grade. She is the reason my kid knows what a marigold is. She laughs at my bad jokes, and she puts up with your worse ones. She sits on that couch and listens when I talk about Hannah without flinching. He ran a hand over his face. But when I look across the room sometimes, he said, I see Hannah first. It is like my heart does not know how to separate the two images yet. I do not know if I am falling in love with Nora or if I am trying to replay the life I lost. Maybe it is both, Jake said. That does not seem fair, Luke said. She deserves someone who sees her, and only her when she walks into a room, not someone still checking her against a memory. On the front porch, a floorboard creaked. The old wood always complained when someone stepped on the same spot. I just heard something, Luke said. Probably her. I need to go. Do not run this time, Jake said. Say the things. I will try. He ended the call and set the phone on the coffee table. Nora, he called. Door is open. No answer. He walked to the entryway. The door was still closed. The porch light spilled through the glass panels, dulling the view outside. He frowned and opened the door. Nora stood on the other side, hand halfway to the knob, eyes wide and bright with something that looked like shock. Water beaded on her hair and shoulders. It had started to drizzle again without him noticing. Hey, he said. Were you standing out here long? Long enough, she said. Her voice did not sound like hers. It sounded like it had been scraped across gravel. He stepped back automatically to let her in. She stayed where she was. How much did you hear? He asked. She blinked once slow. Enough, she said. Her fingers flexed at her side. Her other hand reached into her pocket and came out with the key he had given her. At some point, she had added a tiny plastic sunflower keychain to it. It swung between her fingers, now catching light. Is that all I am to you? She asked. A way to pretend she did not die. The words hit him in the chest. No, he said. It is not that simple. It never is with you, she said. Rain tapped a thin rhythm on the porch roof over her head. The hallway behind him seemed to stretch the house, holding its breath. I have spent months holding my heart in my hands every time I walk into this house, she said, telling myself it is fine that I am here for Emma, that whatever I feel for you is my problem, not yours. I told myself you seeing her when you look at me was part of the deal. Her voice shook. She forced it steady. But hearing you say you do not know if it is her or me, she said, that is different. I do not want to lie to you, he said. I meant what I said to Jake. I am confused. I do not know where grief ends and something new begins. I do not know how to cut my heart into labeled sections. I am not asking you to, she said. I am asking you if when you look at me, you see me. Nora, the woman who shows up with muffins and spelling tests and a past you cannot fix. Or if you only see the outline of someone you lost. He opened his mouth, closed it, the truth tangled in his throat. I see both, he said finally, the admission thick. I want it to be just you. I am trying. Some days I get close. Some days I look up, and for a second I am back in that hospital room, and somewhere under that image is you holding a coffee mug. Her jaw clenched. That is not something I can compete with, she said, and I should not have to. She took his hand, the one hanging uselessly at his side. She pressed the key into his palm, closing his fingers over it. I love your daughter, she said. I think I might love you, which is pathetic and messy and not what I planned for my life. I was willing to sit with that mess if I thought I had a real place here. Tears slipped down her face now, steady as the rain. But I cannot spend the rest of my life wondering if I am sharing your love with a ghost, she said. I cannot be a placeholder for someone who is not here. You are not a placeholder, he said quickly. Then tell me what I am, she said. Tell me you see me not Hannah when you close your eyes. He searched for the right arrangement of words, something that would untie the knot. Every sentence he thought of felt like a half-truth. I do not know if I can, he said. Her shoulders fell in a way that looked like something inside her had finally let go. That is your answer, she said. She stepped back onto the porch, away from the doorway's circle of light. "Nora," he said, "please, do not just disappear. Emma will be crushed." "I know," she said. "You can tell her I needed space. That is grown-up code, right?" He flinched. "I am sorry," he said. "So am I," she replied. She turned and walked down the steps. The rain caught the light turning to silver across her coat. He stood in the open doorway, watching her cross the yard and get into her car. The engine started. Headlights washed over the front of the house for a moment, bright and unforgiving, then swung away as she pulled into the street. He stayed there long after the sound of her car faded, the key, cold and solid in his fist, the empty house behind him quiet as a held breath. The house felt bigger without Nora. It was a small thing, really. One less coat on the hook by the door, one less mug in the dish rack, one less voice cutting through the usual noise of cartoons and the dishwasher. Luke noticed it everywhere. On Wednesday, he set 3 plates out of habit before realizing. He stood there for a moment, one plate in his hand, and then put it back in the cabinet without a sound. Emma noticed too. She came home from school, dropped her backpack in its usual explosion by the door, then stopped in the middle of the living room. "Is Aunt Nora coming tonight?" she asked. Luke dried his hands on a dish towel. "Not tonight," he said. "She is sick?" Emma asked. He hesitated. "No." "Did something happen at school?" "Not at school." Emma narrowed her eyes. She had inherited Hannah's ability to hear the space around words as much as the words themselves. "Did you make her mad?" she asked. He could have said no. He could have blamed work or stress or anything else that did not sit so heavy in his chest. "It is complicated," he said instead. Her mouth pulled to one side. "You keep saying that," she said. "It always sounds like grown-up code for I messed up and I do not want to say how." He did not argue. That night, Emma lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the glow-in-the-dark stars dim but still visible. Luke sat on the edge of the mattress, hands folded between his knees. "Do you remember the first time Aunt Nora braided your hair?" he asked. Emma turned her head toward him. "Yeah," she said. "I thought she was Mom." He nodded. "That was hard," he said. "It was also cool," Emma said softly, "because I did not know I had anyone who looked like Mom like that." He watched her fingers trace the seam of the blanket. "Did she leave because of me?" she asked. Her voice dropped to almost nothing. "Did I say something wrong?" His throat tightened. "No," he said quickly. "You did nothing wrong. She loves spending time with you." "Then why is she not here?" Emma asked. "She was here, and then she was not. That is kind of a theme around here." He flinched at that. "Aunt Nora and I had a fight," he said. "My fault, mostly." "What about?" Emma asked. He looked at her small, serious face and wondered how much of the truth was too much. "I was honest with her about something," he said, slowly choosing his words. "About how sometimes when I look at her, I see Mom first. I was trying to figure out what my feelings meant, and I did not do a very good job explaining. It hurt her." Emma frowned. "You told her she looks like Mom and that was a surprise?" she asked. "She has eyes. She owns a mirror." "It was more than that," he said. "She needs to know that when I care about her, I care about her for herself, not only because of how she looks. I did not make that clear." "So now she is gone," Emma said. "For now," he said. The words felt weak in his mouth. Emma rolled onto her back. Her hair fanned out over the pillowcase, messy from the day. "Did you say you were sorry?" she asked. "Yes," he said. "I told her I was sorry." "Did you say it just once, or a lot?" Emma pressed. "A lot," he said. She was quiet for a moment. "Sometimes sorry is not enough," she said. The room seemed to shrink around them. He looked at the nightstand. The picture of Hannah and Emma at the park smiled back from its frame. "Do you miss her?" Emma asked. He did not need to ask who. "Every minute," he said. Emma stared at the ceiling again. "I miss everyone," she said. "I miss Mom. I miss when Aunt Nora came on Wednesdays and braided my hair too tight. I miss when you did not look like your stomach hurt all the time." He closed his eyes briefly. "I am trying," he said quietly. "I know," she said, "but sometimes it feels like you are trying with your eyes closed." Her blunt honesty landed in him deeper than any adult's would have. He rubbed his palms on his jeans. "Do you remember what Mom told you about love before she died?" he asked. Emma's face softened. "Which part?" she asked. "She talked a lot. The part about your heart," he said, "and how it works." Emma pulled the blanket up to her chin, as if the memory made her cold and comforted at the same time. "We were in the hospital," she said. "You went to get a soda, and she made me promise not to touch the buttons on the bed." He almost smiled. "She was very protective of those buttons." Emma smiled too quick and small. "I asked her if I should save all my love for her." Emma said, eyes fixed on the ceiling. So, I did not run out, like a phone battery. Luke swallowed. She laughed. Emma went on, voice soft. Not a lot, just a little because laughing made her cough. She put her hand on my chest and said, "That thing in there is stretchy. You can put as many people in it as you want. Loving somebody new does not kick anybody else out." Her hand mimicked the motion resting lightly on her own chest. She said if I met someone later who was kind and made me feel safe, I should not feel bad about loving them too, Emma said. She said she would be mad at me if I tried to stay sad forever to prove I loved her. He stared at her, the room blurring. She said the same thing about you, Emma added. She said she hoped you would be brave enough to let someone else in, because you can be kind of stubborn. A wet laugh escaped him. She really said that. Not in those exact words, Emma admitted, but that is what she meant. He reached out and brushed a strand of hair away from her eyes. You remember all that, he said. I remember everything about that week, she replied. I wish I did not sometimes, but I do. He let his hand rest on the side of her head for a moment, palm warm against her hair. She was right, Emma said, about the heart thing. I love you. I love Mom. I love Aunt Nora. There is room. It is not like I have to pick one or the whole thing explodes. He opened his mouth, then closed it. His chest felt like someone had wedged something under his ribs and was slowly prying them apart. You think I love Nora? He said, more to test the shape of the words than anything. Emma turned her head toward him. I think you are scared, she said. And when you get scared, you act like there is only one right answer and a bunch of wrong ones. He almost laughed again. When did you get so smart? He asked. I have always been this smart, she said. You were just busy. The remark stung and warmed him both at once. She yawned, then covering her mouth with the back of her hand. Are you mad at Aunt Nora? She asked. No, he said. I am mad at myself. So fix it, she said. It is not that simple, he murmured. Maybe it is, she said, echoing her earlier accusation. Say what you feel. Do something brave. That is what they tell us in books all the time. He leaned down and kissed her forehead. Sleep, he said. Will you still be here when I wake up? She mumbled, already half gone. Yeah, he said. I am not going anywhere. He turned off the lamp on her nightstand and left the door cracked just enough for the hallway light to slip in. The living room felt strange at night without the flicker of the television. He did not turn it on. Instead, Luke went to the closet in the hallway and pulled down the box from the top shelf. It was a plain cardboard box, the edges softened from being handled. Hannah's handwriting marked the lid. Old stuff, it said, with a little smiley face drawn in the corner. He carried it to the coffee table and sat on the floor, legs folded under him. The house was quiet. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere outside, a car rolled past, tires hissing on the pavement. He lifted the lid. Inside, the life he had shared with Hannah existed in paper fragments and small objects. Ticket stubs from the cheap theater downtown. A dried flower from the first bouquet he had ever managed to buy her. A key ring from the community center where they had met. A brittle hospital bracelet with her name. He picked up a folded piece of notebook paper, edges worn. His name was written on the outside in her handwriting. Luke, it said, for later. He had seen it before. The week after the funeral, he had found it and shoved it back into the box because reading it then felt like trying to breathe underwater. His fingers trembled as he unfolded it now. The ink had faded a little, but her voice came through clearly in the loop of each letter. Hey you, it began. If you are reading this, it means I did not get to nag you properly in person. So, here is a list of things I need you to remember. She had written about practical things first. To check the smoke alarm batteries twice a year. To never let Emma talk him into feeding stray cats because one would become 12. To call Jake when the truck made the noise she hated, and he pretended not to hear. Near the bottom, the tone shifted. Do not turn us into a museum, she had written. Pictures are good, stories are good, but if you freeze everything where I left it, you will get stuck there too. I want our love to be a door, not a cage. He stopped, swallowed hard, and forced himself to keep reading. Promise me you will keep going, she had written. Not just surviving, living, laughing at dumb jokes, letting new people in. I know you. You will try to be loyal by being miserable. That is not loyalty, that is stubbornness. He could almost hear the smile in that last word. I want Emma to grow up in a house where joy is allowed, she had finished. I want her to see you love people, not just memories. That is how she will know I mattered. Because you learned how to love bigger, not smaller. He let the paper fall into his lap and pressed his palms to his eyes. Emotion rolled through him in waves, hot and sharp, then leaving him spent. He sat like that for a long time. The letter opened the box at his knees, the quiet house around him, full of all the things that were gone and all the things that were not. When he finally lowered his hands, his gaze fell on the key still sitting on the coffee table. The small metal shape with the sunflower keychain looked out of place among the faded scraps of his old life. It belonged to now. His chest hurt, but beneath the ache there was something else. A small, steady feeling, like the first turn of an engine that had not been started in a long time. He reached for the key and closed his hand around it. In the morning, the world looked exactly the same. The sky over the neighborhood was a flat, pale blue. A dog barked somewhere down the block. A delivery truck rumbled past, rattling the windows. Inside the house, nothing moved on its own. No mug clinked in the sink. No braid was being woven in the hallway. Emma slept late after her sleepover wrapped around her stuffed bear with glitter still clinging to her hair. Luke sat at the kitchen table with Hannah's letter in front of him and Nora's key in his fist. The coffee in his cup had gone cold. He drank it anyway. The words on the paper repeated in his head until they blurred. Door, not cage. Living, not just surviving. Love, bigger, not smaller. His phone lay screen down beside the letter. It felt heavier than it should. He flipped it over and stared at Nora's name in his contacts. He typed a message. I read something Hannah wrote me before she died, he wrote. I finally heard what she was trying to say. I owe you an apology. Can we talk? He stared at it, thumb hovering, then hit send before he talked himself out of it. The message sat there, status small and unhelpful. Sent. He waited. Nothing changed. The refrigerator hummed. The clock ticked. He added another. I know I hurt you, he wrote. I am sorry. That is not enough, but it is true. He set the phone down and pushed his chair back, restless. An hour later, the messages still sat small and blue. No reply. No 3 dots. By Monday, his attempts had multiplied. He called once, then again in the afternoon. Voicemail picked up both times her recorded greeting, stiff and awkward in the way all recorded greetings were. Hey, it is Nora. Leave a message and I will call you back if I recognize the number and feel like being a grown-up today. He listened to it all the way through twice and then hung up without saying anything. On the third try, he forced himself to speak. It is Luke, he said, staring at the wall in the shop office. I know you know that. I am sorry. I would like to say that to your face, not your voicemail. Call me if when you feel like it. He hung up and stared at the phone. In the evenings, he drove past the small brick building where she rented an apartment. Lights glowed in some windows. Her front window stayed dark. The one time he went up and knocked, no one answered. The hallway smelled like someone else's dinner and bleach. At school, Emma reported that Aunt Nora had not been in class. Mrs. Green was our sub, Emma said, poking at her mashed potatoes. She is nice, but she does not make the same faces when kids are weird. Lily says she called in sick. Jake told him when Luke stopped by his office one afternoon. Headache or something. You think she is really sick? Luke asked. Jake gave him a look. She is heartsick, he said, which I think counts. Guilt pressed against Luke's ribs, a constant dull weight. On the 4th day, he walked into the elementary school. The secretary looked up from her computer glasses low on her nose. The office smelled like crayons and copier toner. Can I help you? She asked. I am looking for Ms. Hayes, he said. Nora Hayes. My daughter is in her class. The secretary's expression shifted into something apologetic. I am sorry, she said. Ms. Hayes is out this week. Personal leave. Is she okay? He asked. The secretary glanced at a list on her desk, then back at him. She did not share details, she said, just that she needed some time. He thanked her and walked back out into the bright afternoon, the sun too sharp on the concrete. He stood by his truck keys in his hand and stared at the playground. It was empty at this hour, swings still slide gleaming. He had done this, pushed someone who had already lost too much into taking more distance. His phone buzzed in his pocket. For a second, hope flared hard enough to hurt. It was Jake. Any luck? Jake asked as soon as he answered. She is on personal leave, Luke said. No answer at home. She has to be somewhere, Jake said. Lily mentioned she had been staying with a friend. Mariah, I think. They teach together. Do you have a number? Luke asked. That would be mildly creepy, Jake said. Paper rustled on his end. But I can ask Lily where they hang out. Hold on. There was a muffled conversation laughter in the background. Then Jake came back. They go to the farmer's market downtown on Saturdays, he said. Most weeks. Flowers and fresh bread and whatever else teachers live on when they are not being paid enough. Saturday is 2 days away, Luke said. Use the time to figure out what you are going to say, Jake said, and maybe shower. Luke stared at the empty playground a second longer. I cannot keep screwing this up, he said. Then do not, Jake replied. Tell her how you actually feel, not just how confused you are. You owe her that much. Saturday came with clear skies and a bite in the air. The downtown farmers market sprawled along the riverfront tents in bright colors lining the walk. The air smelled like coffee-fried dough and cold river. People drifted from booth to booth carrying canvas bags and paper cups. Luke parked 3 blocks away because that was where he found a space, then walked into the stream of bodies. Vendors called out their specials. Someone strummed a guitar near the entrance. Kids darted around adults' legs, faces sticky from something sugary. His heart pounded against his ribs like he had run there instead of walked. He scanned the rows. A booth piled high with apples. Another with jars of honey sunlight glinting on the glass. Tables of handmade soap and knitted hats. A stall overflowing with flowers and metal buckets, color bursting in the middle of all the winter coats. He saw her there. Nora stood with her back to him. At the flower booth, hair pulled into a low ponytail under a knit hat. Her coat was open at the throat. She held a bouquet of marigolds in one hand, orange petals vivid against the muted day. Her other hand gestured as she laughed at something the vendor said. He stopped. The sound of her laugh reached him, threaded with a raw edge he had not heard before, and would not have noticed if he did not know her. For a second, his feet did not move. The easy thing would be to turn around. To let the crowd swallow him, let her keep her safe distance. He thought of Emma's face in the dim light of her room. So fix it. He stepped forward. Someone bumped his shoulder. A stroller cut across his path. He muttered an apology and kept his sight on the marigolds. He got close enough to hear the vendor's voice. "Those are my favorites," the woman behind the bucket said. "People sleep on marigolds, but they are tough. They hang on." "Yeah," Nora said. "They were my mom's favorite, too." The vendor wrapped the stems in brown paper and handed them over. Nora passed her some cash, then turned bouquet in her hands. She almost walked right into him. Her laugh died. The color drained from her face. The marigolds rustled as her fingers tightened around them. "Luke," she said. It was not a question. "Hi," he said. They stood there for a heartbeat in the middle of the market, the world moving around them. Someone brushed past with a crate of tomatoes. A child trailed a helium balloon that bobbed at eye level. Nora found her voice first. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "I came to find you," he said. "To talk, if you will let me." A woman at the neighboring booth glanced between them, and then at Nora, reading the tension in the air without needing words. "I am going to go check on the jam samples," she said to no one in particular, slipping away. Nora set the bouquet down carefully on the edge of the table, as if afraid her hands might crush the petals. "I do not think there is anything left to say," she said. Her chin lifted, but he could see the way her throat worked. "There is everything left to say," he replied. She looked at him, then really looked, her eyes searching his face. The last time she had done that, she had walked away. "You had weeks," she said, "and now you show up at a market like some kind of movie scene." "This is as far from a movie as it gets," he said. "My heart does not know its lines." She snorted despite herself. It faded quickly. He took a breath, the cold air burning his lungs. "I have been an idiot," he said. "I am not arguing," she said. "Is that your whole speech?" "No," he said. "That is the preface." He rubbed his palm on his jeans, feeling how damp it had become. "When I talked to Jake that night, he said, I was telling the truth. I was confused. I was scared that if I let myself feel anything for you, it would mean I was betraying Hannah. I put that on you without asking if you wanted it. That was wrong." She watched him, expression guarded. "I kept telling myself I did not know where grief ended and you began," he said. "Then I went home and read a letter Hannah wrote me before she died. She knew me well enough to see exactly what I was going to do. She told me not to turn us into a museum, not to build a cage out of what we had and lock myself in it." He swallowed. "I have been doing that anyway," he said, "clinging to the past and using it as an excuse to stay half alive. That is on me, not you." Nora's fingers curled, slightly, nails pressing into her palms. "This still sounds like it is all about her," she said softly. "It is not," he said. "I am telling you how I got here, not where I want to stay." He took a small step closer, careful not to crowd her. "When I look at you now," he said, "I do not just see a face that looks like Hannah's. I see the woman who shows up in the rain and refuses to come inside without a key. The teacher who stays late to make sure a kid who cannot sit still learns how to read. The person who learned how to change a tire just because she did not want to be helpless on the side of the road." Images flickered in his mind as he spoke. Nora in the stands yelling at the umpire. Nora at his kitchen counter laughing when the sauce splattered. Nora sitting cross-legged on the floor, listening to Emma talk about dinosaurs. "I see the way you look at my daughter like she hung the moon," he said. "I see you saving every stupid note she gives you. I see you coming into a house that was full of ghosts and making room for yourself without trying to erase anyone." His voice shook. He did not try to steady it. "I do not want you because you remind me of Hannah," he said. "I want you because you are you. Because you are brave enough to love damaged people. Because when you are not around, the whole place feels wrong." Her eyes filled, tears gathering at the edges. "How do I know this is not just guilt talking?" she asked roughly. "Or loneliness, or whatever you felt when you read that letter." "You do not," he said. "Not completely. I cannot give you a guarantee stamped on paper." He glanced at the bouquet beside her. "Emma reminded me of something," he said. "Hannah told her once that love is not a battery. It does not run out if you use it on more than one person. I have been acting like loving you would drain what I feel for her. But that is not how it works in my chest. When I stop being scared long enough to listen, I can feel both. They do not cancel each other out." He paused, letting the market noise swell and recede around them. "I will probably always see Hannah in small ways," he said. "In a song on the radio, in the way Emma sneezes in your face sometimes. I cannot turn that off. But I can tell you this: when I close my eyes and think about the future, about Wednesday nights and Sunday mornings, and who I want in my kitchen stealing the good mug, it is you I see." The words hung between them, warm breath in cold air. Nora's shoulders had loosened while he spoke, just a fraction. A tear slipped down her cheek, cutting a clean path through the flush. "You hurt me," she said. Her voice was soft but steady. "You made me feel like a costume someone else left behind." "I know," he said, "and I am sorry. Not the kind of sorry you toss over your shoulder, the kind you sit in." He took another tiny step closer. "I do not deserve another chance," he said, "but I am still asking for one. If you tell me no, I will respect that. I will not chase you around every market in the city. I will answer Emma's questions as honestly as I can without putting the weight on her. But if there is any part of you that believes I am not just trying to resurrect something that is gone, I would like to try again." The vendor at the neighboring booth pretended to rearrange jars, giving them a bubble of privacy in the middle of the crowd. Nora looked at him so long he started to feel the edges of panic rise. She searched his face like she might find the truth written there. "Do you miss me?" she asked finally. "Not what I represent. Not the connection to your wife or Emma's mom or some lost life. Me." "Every second," he said. The answer came out without effort. It had been waiting. Her mouth trembled. She pressed her lips together to steady it. "Emma misses having her hair braided." He added, his tone lighter by a shade. "She has been letting me try. It is not going well." A small laugh escaped her, shaky and wet. "That poor child," she said. "She is very brave," he agreed. She glanced down at the marigolds, then back up. "I am still scared," she said. "Me too," he said. "I do not think that goes away. But I am done letting fear be the only voice I listen to." Nora lifted a hand and wiped her cheeks with the heel of her palm. "If I say yes," she said slowly, "I need honesty. Not just the parts you think will make me stay. When you get confused, when you feel the past crowding in, I need you to tell me. I can handle messy. I cannot handle standing next to you in the dark while you pretend you are alone." "I can do that," he said. "I should have been doing that already." She breathed out a long, unsteady exhale. "Okay," she said. The word was small. It changed everything. He took another step, leaving hardly any space between them now. He raised his hand slowly, giving her time to move away. She did not. His fingers brushed her cheek, warm under the cold air. "Can I hug you?" he asked. She nodded. He wrapped his arms around her, pulling her in gently. She felt solid and shaking at the same time. Her hands slid up his back, clutching the fabric of his jacket. The smells of coffee and river and marigolds wrapped around them. For the first time in a long time, the tightness in his chest eased. Nora's face pressed against his shoulder. "I am still mad," she mumbled. "I know," he said into her hair. "I can live with that." She let out a half laugh, half sob, and held on. Around them, the market went on. Voices rose and fell. A child squealed over a balloon. The river moved steadily past, carrying leaves and reflections away. Nora came back on a Sunday. The sky was a clear, high blue, the kind that made everything sharper. The cold hung in the air, bright and thin. Church had let out an hour ago, and Emma had spent most of the drive home asking questions about hamsters and why the pastor always said amen twice. They were in the kitchen when the knock came. Emma sat on a stool by the counter, swinging her feet, munching on a slice of toast. Luke stood at the stove, turning bacon in a pan. The smell of it filled the room. He froze with the spatula in his hand. Door, Emma said around a mouthful. Someone is there. I heard, he said. He set the spatula down and wiped his hands on a towel. His heart picked up speed in a way that felt familiar now, but no less intense. He walked to the front door and opened it. Nora stood on the step, hands tucked into her coat pockets, hat pulled low over her ears. Her cheeks were pink from the wind. A faint band of tiredness sat under her eyes, but they were clearer than he had seen them in weeks. Hi, she said. He smiled before he could stop himself. Hi. Behind him, Emma leaned out of the hallway, craning her neck. The second she saw Nora, her face lit up so suddenly it hurt to look at. Aunt Nora, she said, the words bursting out. Nora looked past Luke and saw Emma. Her mouth wobbled. She lifted a hand in a small wave. Hey, kid, she said. I heard you glued a science project to the table without me. Emma bounced on her toes. You were not here, she said. Dad and I suffered alone. Luke made a wounded sound. I was very helpful, he said. You made it worse, Emma replied. Nora laughed, the sound curling through the hallway. Are you staying for breakfast? Emma asked without preamble. We have bacon. It is almost as good as yours. If it is okay with your dad, Nora said. Both of them looked at Luke. Yeah, he said. Stay. She stepped inside. The familiar smell of their house wrapped around her, layered over with bacon and dish soap. Emma vanished down the hall in a blur of socks and excitement. I will make tea, Luke said. You really know how to sweep a girl off her feet, Nora said. Tea and bacon. It is my full romantic repertoire, he said. They moved back into the kitchen together. Nora shrugged out of her coat and hung it on the hook. It slid into place where it used to between Emma's jacket and Luke's worn denim. Emma reappeared clutching something in both hands. She held it out to Nora like an offering. It was a small, wide-backed hairbrush with a plastic handle. The pink faded and scratched. A few strands of dark hair were still caught in the bristles. This was Mom's, Emma said. She used it on me. It has some of her hair still, I think. I kept it in my drawer because it still smells like her a little. Nora took the brush carefully, like she was being handed something fragile and alive. She turned it over in her hands, thumb tracing the old scratches. Thank you for showing me, she said. Her voice had gone quiet. You can keep it here, Emma said. In our house. But you can use it too. It can be like both of yours. Luke watched Nora's face. Something in her expression opened and broke at the same time. Are you sure? She asked. Emma nodded. It does not work if it just sits in a drawer, she said. Mom would be mad about that. Nora laughed, a sound that trembled. Yeah, she said. She would. She glanced at Luke. He gave a small nod, throat thick. Thank you, she said again, more to both of them this time. She set the brush down on the counter next to the toaster like it belonged there. They ate together at the kitchen table, plates crowded with bacon and eggs and slightly burned toast. Emma did most of the talking. She filled Nora in on everything she had missed. The sleepover, the science project, a new kid in class who could juggle 3 erasers at once. She spoke fast as if trying to cram weeks into minutes. Nora listened, laughing at the right moments, asking questions, shaking her head at the eraser juggling. Luke watched them both, letting their voices wash over him like music he had missed without knowing it. Can we do something today? Emma asked suddenly as she speared the last piece of bacon. All 3 of us. Luke glanced at Nora. What are you thinking? He asked. Emma shrugged. I do not know. Something that is not homework. Nora dabbed at her mouth with a napkin. I was going to go out to the cemetery, she said. If that is okay to say at the breakfast table, I bought those marigolds yesterday. Emma tilted her head. To see Mom's stone? She asked. And my parents? Nora said. I brought some for both. Luke's eyebrows lifted. You put them next to each other, he said. Nora nodded. Seemed right, she said. Emma chewed on her lower lip. Can we come? She asked. You do not have to, Nora said quickly. It is not exactly a roller coaster. I know, Emma said. I still want to. Luke met Nora's eyes over Emma's head. There was a question there and an answer. Then we will go, he said. The cemetery sat on a small hill at the edge of a town, rows of stones stretching under bare trees. The wind made a shushing sound through the branches. They walked along the gravel path, boots crunching. Emma held one of Luke's hands and one of Nora's, swinging their arms in a slow, uneven rhythm. Hannah's grave lay under a maple that had lost most of its leaves, the ground around it dotted with brown and red. The stone was simple. Her name, 2 dates, a line Hannah had once joked about and then later insisted on. Love beyond measure. Nora stopped a few steps away at first, as if her feet did not know how close to go. She looked at the name on the stone, the letters carved into granite. I have seen your handwriting, she said under her breath. Now I see your gravestone. Emma let go of their hands and went ahead. She crouched and straightened the small plastic vase that held last month's flowers, now brittle and colorless. She plucked them out and set them aside. Nora knelt beside her. She untied the string around the marigold stems and arranged them in the vase, fingers steady. The orange petals looked almost too bright against the gray stone and brown earth. My mom loved these, Nora said. Mary, your other grandma, she planted them in the front yard every year. She said they were stubborn flowers, hard to kill. Like Mom, Emma said. Nora smiled. Like Mom, she agreed. Luke stood back a little, hands in his pockets watching the two kneeling figures at the base of the stone. The wind lifted a lock of Nora's hair and set it back down. Nora reached out and rested her fingertips lightly on the top edge of the granite. Hi, Hannah, she said quietly. I am late, as usual. She exhaled, fogging the air in front of her. I met your husband, she went on. He is infuriating and kind and stubborn in ways that make sense now. I met your daughter. She is somehow even better than all the stories make her sound. Her voice shook once. You did good, she whispered. You picked well. Emma looked up at the stone, then at Nora. Do you want a minute? Emma asked. Nora shook her head. Only if you stay, she said. You are part of this. They sat there together, the small circle of marigolds bright between them. After a while, they walked over to a newer stone a few rows away. Mary and Tom Hayes. The dates were closer together than they should have been. Nora set another bunch of marigolds down, brushing dirt off the base. This is them, she said to Emma. Your other grandparents. Emma hesitated, then stepped closer. She reached out and touched the stone with 2 fingers. Hi, she said, voice barely above a whisper. I am Emma. Nora's eyes closed briefly. They would have loved you, she said. I think they did, Emma said. For a long time. They just did not know what my face looked like. Luke stood between the 2 stones for a moment, looking from one to the other, feeling the invisible lines tying them all together. The ground felt solid under his boots. For the first time, the place felt less like an ending and more like a point on a map. A week later, the Mustang's engine finally turned over. It happened almost by accident. The shop was quiet late on a Thursday. The last customer had left. The light outside had gone that early winter blue. Luke stood in front of the car, hands braced on the fender. The tarp lay in a heap on the floor. He had been picking at small things for days, tightening a hose, checking a connection, cleaning a plug. Every time he passed, he did one more thing. Tonight, there was nothing left to adjust. He slid into the driver's seat, the old vinyl creaking. The steering wheel felt familiar and strange in his grip. Dust motes floated in the shaft of light from the open bay door. He turned the key. For a split second, the world held its breath. Then the engine coughed, caught, and roared to life, a deep, even growl that filled the shop. Luke laughed, a startled sound that rose up out of somewhere deep. Finally, he said to no one. He let it run for a minute, listening, feeling the vibration through the seat. Something that had been still for a long time was moving again. That night, when Nora and Emma came over for dinner, he tossed the Mustang's keys into the air and caught them, grin still tugging at his mouth. What? Emma asked. Why are you smiling like that? Did you win the lottery? Better, he said. Come with me. They walked out to the driveway. The Mustang sat there, freshly pulled from the shop, washed and shining under the porch light. The primer gray was gone, replaced by a deep blue that matched the evening sky. Emma's jaw dropped. Is that the old car? She asked. The zombie one. It is very much alive, Luke said. He opened the passenger door and jerked his head toward the seat. Get in, he said. Emma scrambled in, running her hand over the cracked dash like it was something sacred. Nora hung back a little, looking at the car, then at Luke. You fixed it, she said. Took me long enough, he replied. He walked around, opened the driver's side door, and leaned against the frame. I kept telling myself I did not have time, he said, or that I did not know where to start. Truth was, I just did not want to see what it looked like when it was not broken anymore. Nora stepped closer, fingers brushing the edge of the door. Looks pretty good from here, she said. He smiled, a small private thing. So do we, he said. The proposal happened on a Monday morning that started like any other. The kitchen smelled like pancake batter and coffee. Sunlight slanted through the window over the sink, turning the steam from the kettle into thin ribbons. Emma sat at the table in her school polo, hunched over a math worksheet pencil, tapping the margin. Nora stood at the stove hair in a loose knot, wearing an old t-shirt that said, "Read more books," across the front. She flipped a pancake and frowned at the slightly charred edge. Emma, she said, if I burn this one, we are pretending it is art. Emma did not look up from her paper. I already live in fear, she said. Luke leaned against the counter mug in hand, watching them both. The chipped mug sat near the sink, now sharing space with Nora's sunflower mug. The brush with Hannah's hair sat by the fruit bowl, its presence as natural as the stack of mail. He had been carrying the ring in his pocket for 3 days. It had been Hannah's grandmother's ring tucked into the bottom of the box of old things. He had turned it over in his palm so many times the metal felt warm even when it was not. Nora slid a pancake onto a plate and set it in front of Emma. "Extra crispy," she announced. "For texture." Emma eyed it. "For smoke alarms," she said. Nora smirked and turned back to the stove. Luke set his mug down, the ceramic making a soft sound on the counter. His heart beat too fast for such a quiet room. He walked to the drawer by the sink and pulled it open. The ring box sat on top of the dish towels. He took it out and closed his hand around it. When he turned, Nora was pouring batter into the pan again, humming under her breath. Emma was muttering numbers eraser smudges already clouding the worksheet. He cleared his throat. "Hey," he said. "Yeah," they both answered at once. He smiled without meaning to. "Nora," he said. She glanced over her shoulder spatula still in hand. Batter sizzled on the pan. "Can you come here for a second?" he asked. She turned off the burner and wiped her hands on a dish towel, confused. "Is the pancake on fire?" she asked. "Not yet," Emma said, "but give it time." "Nobody is on fire," Luke said. His palms were damp now. He wiped them on his jeans, then dropped to one knee on the kitchen tile. For a second, no one spoke. Emma's pencil slipped from her fingers and rolled across the table. Nora stared at him. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Trying to remember the speech I did not write," he said. He opened his hand. The ring sat in his palm, small and bright. The thin band still caught the light, the same way it had in Hannah's fingers, and now it waited for the next story. Nora's hand flew to her mouth. "I have been thinking about doors," he said, "and cages, and cars that do not move for years until someone finally gets under the hood." Her laugh came out as a choked sound. "I do not want you at the edge of this life knocking and waiting to be let in," he said. "I do not want you out on the porch with a key in your pocket, wondering if you are allowed to use it. I want you here, at this table, in this chaos, in all of it." He glanced at Emma. Her eyes shone wide and intent. "I love you," he said to Nora. "Not because of who you look like, not because of the past you carry. Those are part of it, but they are not the whole thing. I love the woman who reads bedtime stories in ridiculous voices, who knows the names of every kid in her class and every plant in the backyard, who came into a house full of our ghosts and never once tried to make them disappear." He took a breath. "Marry me," he said, "please." Silence stretched for a heartbeat. Nora did not move. Then she laughed, a sound wet with tears. "Yes," she said. "Of course, yes." Emma let out a yell that shook the window. "I knew it," she shouted. "I knew you were going to be stupid and then fix it." Nora wiped at her cheeks and held out her left hand. Luke slid the ring onto her finger. It settled there as if it had been waiting. "It fits," she said softly. "Of course it does," Emma said. "We are extremely efficient." Nora leaned down and kissed Luke quick and fierce. Bacon hissed on the still warm pan behind her, forgotten. "You are going to burn that," Emma pointed out. "I do not care," Nora said against his mouth. "Cool," Emma said. "We will eat cereal at your wedding." They kept the wedding small. The church where Luke had married Hannah sat on a quiet street lined with old maples. The bricks were darker now, the sign out front a little more faded, but the bell still rang the same way when the wind caught it. On a Saturday in June, the air thick with the smell of cut grass and summer, Luke stood at the front of the aisle in a suit that fit better than his first one had. His hands were steady. The Mustang keys sat in his pocket, a familiar weight. Emma stood beside him in a pale yellow dress hair, in a braided crown that Nora had made that morning, fingers sure. She had declared herself maid of honor and refused to be talked out of it. "I have earned this," she had said. "I am the glue in this situation." Jake stood on Luke's other side, crooked eyes already a little shiny. The doors at the back opened. Nora walked in on Lily's arm. She wore a simple white dress that moved when she did the fabric catching the light. Around her neck on a thin chain hung Hannah's ring, the one from the first wedding. The new ring shone on her hand. Luke's chest tightened and eased at the same time. Nora's eyes found his. The room full of people blurred at the edges. His world narrowed to the line from the door to where he stood and the woman moving along it. She reached him. Lily squeezed her hand and stepped back. Emma beamed up at her. The ceremony itself was short. The pastor spoke about promises and patience and the strange ways lives can cross. He mentioned nothing about fate and everything about choices. "Do you, Luke, choose Nora?" he asked. "To walk with, to listen to to learn from in the days you are given. I do, Luke said. Do you, Nora, choose Luke to walk with, to listen to learn from in the days you are given? I do, Nora said. Nora said. Their voices did not shake. When the pastor pronounced them husband and wife, there was a beat of quiet. Then Emma leaned toward the microphone on the stand. Told you, she whispered, not as soft as she thought. The first 3 rows heard it clearly and burst out laughing. The laughter rolled backward through the pews like a wave. Luke kissed Nora slow and sure. The church smelled like old wood and flowers and a little bit like fresh paint. At the reception in the fellowship hall, under strings of white lights, Emma danced with Nora, both of them barefoot. The marigolds from the cemetery sat in a small vase on the dessert table, bright against the white tablecloth. Later that night, when the dishes were stacked and the last guest had gone, Luke and Nora stood in the quiet kitchen shoes, kicked-off jackets draped over chairs. Nora touched the chain around her neck. Do you think she is okay with this? She asked softly. He did not have to ask who. I think she is probably rolling her eyes that it took me this long, he said. Nora smiled. Sounds like her, she said. 4 years later, the fair lights glowed against the summer sky. The county fair had set up on the edge of town rides and booths, spilling across the old fairgrounds. The air smelled like popcorn, cotton candy, and warm asphalt. Music drifted from the speakers near the entrance, competing with the buzz of voices and the mechanical clank of rides. Luke walked through the gate with one of Nora's hands in his and a small boy hanging on to the other. Ben was 3, sturdy and serious about everything. His dark hair stuck up in a crown of stubborn tufts. His free hand clutched a plastic dinosaur. Look, Emma said, walking ahead a few steps. Ferris wheel, we are doing that. She was 13 now, taller, her legs all angles, braid hanging halfway down her back. She wore shorts and an old t-shirt of Luke's sleeves rolled. I am still evaluating, Luke said. It is a wheel, Emma said. It goes in a circle, you sit. Do not be dramatic. Nora laughed beside him. She gets that from you, she said. Obviously, he replied. They wandered past the game booths, the bright prizes swinging in the wind. Ben stopped and stared at a ring toss game where glass bottles clinked as rings landed around them. Can I try? He asked. Luke nodded and bought a small bucket of rings. Ben threw them with intense concentration, tongue between his teeth. None landed where they were supposed to, but the teenage girl running the booth grinned and handed him a small stuffed frog anyway. He tried hard, she said. That counts. Ben hugged the frog to his chest like it was made of gold. They shared a funnel cake powdered sugar dusting their fingers. Emma took a selfie of the 4 of them, everyone leaning in, faces pressed together, sugar on their noses. She checked the photo, nodded in approval, and saved it. As the sun slid lower, the lights came on. Strings of bulbs lit the paths. The Ferris wheel glowed in shifting colors, reflected in the windows of nearby buildings. The air cooled a little, a breeze lifting hair and paper napkins. Now, Emma said, Ferris wheel time. Ben hesitated, looking up at the towering circle. It is very big, he said. Sembivi big, he said. It is also very slow, Nora said. She knelt in front of him, her hand on his small shoulder. We can hold on together. If you do not like it, you can close your eyes and think about pancakes. Ben considered that. Okay, he said. They climbed into the car together. Luke and Nora on either side, Emma next to Ben. The seat rocked gently as they settled. The bar came down with a soft clank. The wheel jerked and then began its slow, smooth climb. From above, the fair spread out in a bright patchwork. Booths, rides, tiny figures moving. Beyond the fairgrounds, the town stretched streetlights flickering on one by one. Ben's fingers dug into Luke's arm for the first turn. Emma pointed out the food stall they had just been at. Nora pressed her knee against Luke's, the contact small and steady. It is pretty, Ben said after a minute, voice barely above the wind. Yeah, Luke said. It is. He looked at Nora. Her hair lifted slightly in the breeze, eyes reflecting the lights below. She looked back at him, a small smile curling at the edges of her mouth. Emma leaned back against the seat head, tipped to the side, taking it all in. From here, Luke could see the outline of the old fairgrounds fence. For a second, he thought about another fair in another state decades ago, when a little girl had stood alone in a crowd, and the world had taken a different shape. He looked at the car they sat in now. 4 bodies pressed together, fingers tangled, laughter over the mechanical hum, the smell of sugar and metal and summer. He let the past rest where it was and held on to what he had. The wheel rose a little higher. The town spread beneath them, familiar and ordinary and beautiful. Emma nudged his shoulder and pointed at a cluster of houses in the distance. Home, she said. He followed her finger, then looked back at the faces in front of him. Nora, Emma, Ben, another small life still growing under Nora's hand where it rested on her stomach. "Yeah," he said softly. "Home." Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story.